The 9th District is losing Congressman Tom Graves to the new 14th District as Pickens County has been split in half. The western half is in the 14th District. The eastern half of Pickens County is in the 9th District. Tom Graves could not personally attend tonight. However, his representative David Allen is here and would like to present a 3-minute video from Tom. David, if you would please stand up so people can see you. There you are in the back. Okay, thank you for attending on Tom's behalf. And if you are from the 14th District, sitting in our audience right now, and you want to talk to Tom's representative, he'll be in the back, and then he can talk to you back there or out in the lobby or hall, because all these are 9th District candidates right now up front. After the video, each of the 9th District candidates will introduce themselves at the podium with a 7-minute introduction. Okay? And you can watch me for the time if need be, and I can tell you 1 minute if you're wondering if you're on time or taking too long. So that will be my job. We appreciate very much that the 9th District candidates have come to Pickens County so that we may get to know you better and then know who to vote for when we head to the voting machine. Now, after introductions, we should take us to about, I'm thinking, 7:50 with this amount of people talking. Then we will want questions from the audience. And if you have some questions on your mind, there's a microphone over there, and we'll move that over there. And if you'll line up over there and get ready to ask the candidates a question, you can ask them individually or open it up to all of them. And we'll just see how it goes. This is just going to be on-the-fly type of thing, but you're welcome to ask them questions. Now,
Town Hall, and I'd love to be there with you, discussing the issues and Good evening, everyone. I'm Congressman Tom Graves, and I'm sorry I was not able to be with you tonight. Unfortunately, I'm in Washington this week. I know you're having a town hall, and I'd love to be there with you, discussing the issues and hearing your concerns on the many issues we are dealing with in our nation's capital. However, if there's a concern or issue you feel we should know about, or if you need assistance with a government agency, you can always contact my congressional office in Dalton at 706-226-5320, or our Gainesville office at 770-535-2592. But one thing I do want to make you aware of, and you may already know about it, that's our Freedom Advancement Team. 2012 will prove to be a pivotal year in our nation's history. America is at a decision point. It's a choice between two futures, two destinies that lie ahead. A choice between death and dependency, or a future of opportunity and prosperity. And guess what? Right here in North Georgia, the fight to beat Barack Obama starts here, and it starts now. For the last month and a half, the Freedom Advancement Team has gained momentum, and conservatives all across North Georgia have signed up and already gone to work in order to ensure victory and make sure that we send Barack Obama back to Chicago. Our effort must be the most advanced grassroots organization. So I've challenged our campaign team to overlay our campaign structure, our volunteers, our resources, sweat and grit all across North Georgia to defeat Barack Obama. So if you believe in a destiny of opportunity and prosperity, then join me and hundreds of others by signing up to be a part of our Freedom Advancement Team. Take one of our brochures. And on our brochures, there are 2 ways that you can get involved. You'll see that you can take out your cell phone right now. Just like I have mine, I know you have yours. All you got to do is take out your cell phone and you can text Freedom 2012 to 72727. That's Freedom 2012. Just text it to 72727. Your information will come to us. Or secondly, you can scan the QR code located on the brochure with any smartphone that you have and just follow the instructions. That's how simple it is. So as we look ahead, the results of all our hard work over the coming months is critical to determine the future that lies ahead for America. So as we continue on this fight together to restore America, know that each one of you can make the difference. We're going to look back on this moment and know that we made history right here in North Georgia because the fight to beat Barack Obama starts here. Thank you for your efforts. Thank you for all you're doing for this great nation. And may the Lord continue to bless our efforts.
Good evening. It is indeed a pleasure to be here. Since I entered this race, I've heard a number of people comment about and lament over the fact that they were losing Tom Graves as their congressman. And I can understand that. I was losing Paul Brown in my district. And, you know, these are both two congressmen that have been serving North Georgia well. But let me point out one thing. The positive thing is Georgia is picking up another congressional district, and it will be a Republican district. So I think that that's a very positive thing for us all. And I'm convinced that you have an opportunity to send someone to Washington that will be equal to your expectations from Tom Graves. So don't fret. There is hope. I am Hunter Bicknell. I currently serve as chairman of the Jackson County, Georgia Board of Commissioners. Was elected in 2008. This is the fourth and final year of that term, and rather than running for re-election there, I decided to run for Congress. Just a little bit about myself. Grew up in Georgia, went to high school in southwest Atlanta. After graduating, went to work, attended Georgia State University at night, received my bachelor's degree, and along the way I got married. I had been married for 46 years to the former Becky Benfield. We have 3 children and 5 grandchildren. I am blessed in that they all live within 26 miles of me. So that was one of the requirements. I told them they could do whatever they wanted to do as long as I could see my grandkids within about an hour. So that's worked out well for us, and I don't think that'll change in the town with the types of jobs that they have. Education, they're in education and health care for the most part. After getting my degree from Georgia State, I continued working for the company that I had worked for during my college career, and was promoted, moved to Chattanooga, Tennessee for about 3 weeks before I found out they were transferring me back to Atlanta. So that was a very brief stay, so I've pretty much been in Georgia. They moved me back. They wanted me to get an MBA, so they relieved me of my work responsibilities to send me back to school. And I received my MBA from Georgia State University, completed coursework in 1970. Continued working for that company, the Sperry and Hutchinson Company, until I had reached the level of regional vice president and was responsible for about a 14-state area, over 1,000 employees, and we contributed in the range of $45 to $50 million a year to profit for the company. That was it. I left the company in 1987 when I realized the only way I could move up in the company was to be assigned to Manhattan, go to work there. I didn't want to work in Connecticut or live in Connecticut or New Jersey and commute to the island, so I decided to leave because I was too young to be in a dead-end job for another 20 years. So I started my own business, opened up a blended sandwich shop, then added additional stores, built small chain stores, and then sold that business after 9 years to start a construction equipment rental business. Did that for several years, and the company I was buying equipment from asked me to come run their company. So I did that, and then continued in that role, traveled extensively throughout the world. We had a network of dealers throughout the world. And we had manufacturing facilities in Stone Mountain, Georgia, as well as just outside of Antwerp, Belgium. After 9/11, my wife decided it was time for me to retire. She did not want me to continue traveling to countries such as Saudi Arabia and Indonesia, and cities like Kuala Lumpur. So we decided that I would retire. We did that. We were fortunate to be able to do that, and I retired at a relatively early age. Devoted the next few years to just serving the community. I was was appointed to the Water and Sewer Authority in Jackson County. After 8 or 10 months, was elected chairman of the Water and Sewer Authority and remained in that role for about 3.5 years until I was elected chairman of the Board of Commissioners. In Jackson County, we have been very successful in a very difficult economic climate. We have reduced property taxes for our citizens, not by way of millage rate reduction, but by way of reassessing property values, and at the same time, not increasing our millage rate. So our property tax revenues decline, our sales tax revenue decline, our fee income declined tremendously, as we're not issuing permits today for much construction. But we have found a way to reduce our budget to make certain that we're protecting the citizens of the county in this difficult economic climate. We've reduced our budget several $1 million, and we have not as yet had to dip into our reserves. So we maintain a healthy rainy day fund, and I think things look very good and very promising for Jackson County. We have, since I've been in office, we have facilitated and assisted in bringing new industry to the county that represents somewhere in the neighborhood of 3,400 new jobs, new private sector jobs. We've reduced our government jobs in the county and increased private sector employment. We are strategically located well, and we benefit from that greatly. But we have also ensured that we had the right infrastructure in place, the right climate to do business, and the opportunity for companies to come and flourish in a good environment. The 3,400 plus jobs that we have seen come to the county, they will really benefit the entire region. We have many of those jobs are filled by residents of Hall County, which is represented up here very well. I don't think we have anybody coming from White County, where Roger's from, but they come from Barrow, Jackson, Gwinnett, Hall, Banks County, Madison County, a number of surrounding counties, and we're proud to be able to help the citizens of those counties also. I am a conservative Republican. Having spent a long career in the business world, and having gone through several business cycles that have been challenging, we understand that you have to be conservative. And how am I doing on time? Oh, my time is up. Okay. Well, I would appreciate it if you would take a look. Our website is votebicknell.com, and take a look at our candidacy, and I would like you to ask for your vote. Thank you very much. It's indeed a pleasure to be here.
Well, good evening. It's good to be up here tonight, and we're blowing into the meetings now. We've got a lot of things going on. My name is Doug Collins. I'm running for this 9th district seat. I am from Hall County. I came there, lived there all my life. My mom and dad moved up there. My dad was a Georgia State Trooper. When he was first assigned and went into the Georgia State Patrol, he was assigned to Gainesville. My mother lived on a dairy farm in Greene County, and my dad lived with my granddad worked on the railroad, the old Georgia Railroad out in Rutledge, Georgia. So they came to Gainesville, and they had started a life. He moved around. So these mountains and this northeast Georgia area in North Georgia became my home, and that's where I was born and raised. I've been all over the world since then, but this is where I call home. This is the place that is best, and I think we are living testament. You are seeing that every day in the communities in which we live. I graduated from North Hall High School, went to North Georgia College, and after that, spent some time in the corporate world. Then after a few years there, I felt I had a call in my life that I had been, and frankly, some of you may want to talk about, I'd been just running from. And I began to pastor. I went to school and got a master's of theology from New Orleans Baptist Seminary in New Orleans, and started pastoring a little church called Chicopee Baptist Church. Chicopee is a mill village down in Gainesville. Johnson & Johnson came in, built the mill, and they built the homes in the late 20s, and it was, at the time when it was built, it was almost like what we call a country club today. But it was filled with hardworking folks who came in and built a life and built a family. And for those years that I was there, it began to get an impress upon me of the hard work and values that make this country great. I spent 11 years of my life there dealing with people, seeing them in ups and downs, seeing them good and bad, dealing with what is affecting in people's lives. During that time, I also joined the United States Air Force, a reserve, which I currently serve as a chaplain at Dobbins Air Force Base in Marietta. I'm currently the wing chaplain. I've been there since 2005. Before then, I was at Moody Air Force Base and served in Iraq in 2008. During that time, I also left Chicopee and left where I really consider my family, and there's many that are still there, and the church is still doing well. I go back and visit them often and hear about them. But I went back and changed careers. And went to what I felt was a new mission field. Now, for some of you, it may not think this is a mission field. For some of you, you may think this is something entirely different. I went back and got a law degree. Went back to law school. So, and somebody say, well, pastor and a lawyer, it's grace and law. There's both sides of the book, okay? And that's where I've been practicing law during my career. I graduated from law school in May, took the bar in July, flew to Iraq in August, and came back and started my second term in the Georgia legislature in 2008. I was elected actually during my first year of law school, going into my second year of law school to the Georgia House of Representatives. And it's good to see Rick Jaspers here tonight, who I've gotten to serve with over the last couple of years down there. I shared that story to let you know also one of the interesting things that has affected me in my public service is to know that what we're facing right now is something of standing up. It's standing up for values. The first phone call I got right after I was elected and was getting ready to go to the Georgia House in 2006, getting ready for the 2007 session, and at that time I wasn't sure what to expect, but I picked up the phone, got a call from the gentleman that you just saw in the video just a second ago, Tom Grace. And Tom says, Doug, this is Tom Graves, and I've been down here for a few years, just wanted to know, are you ready to come to work? And I said, sure. He said, well, are you willing to let me help you? And I said, sure, Tom, I'd love to meet you. And we met, and he became a dear friend. One of the things that began legislative experience is talked about a lot in this race. And it's talked about the lack of or the ability to have. And one of the things that I believe experience matters because of my time in the legislature, I've sort of seen both ends of it. I've been on the short end of the stick, so to speak, and I've seen being able to pass legislation and work with Governor Nathan Deal as his floor leader the last couple of years and be able to move some legislation along. But one of the things I believe is just imperative for this district and for our country right now is the ability to fight. And I have had the experience of being willing to stand up to what was a corrupt speaker at that point. When I first got down there, Glenn Richardson was the speaker, and Glenn ruled with an old-fashioned iron hand. He even said that he envisioned himself as Tom Murphy. The problem was he tried to rule that way too. And he came to a time in which he told us in the House on a DOT board election, he said, you will vote how I tell you to vote. And there were several of us that said, we have a problem with that. Now, after being promised everything from money in the budget to positions on committee, they said, if you just be a team player, Doug, he said everything will be okay. The problem was my community and my constituents didn't want that. The vote came, I voted against the speaker, voted against the leadership at that point, and was stripped of everything a little bit I had from basically being, all the things they couldn't take was my seat on the floor. But I was proud to stand with Tom Graves and Martin Scott and Mark Hamilton and others who stood up and said, no, this is not right. That's what we got to have in D.C., and that's the experience that I come from and the background that I have. Since then, in working in the state legislature, we have seen a lot of good things happen. The legislature is moving forward, and under Governor Deal, we've had, over the past couple of years, we've had to work to save hope. A process that was losing $300 million a year. Last year was able to carry that legislation, and now today, hope endures for the future. It helps our students go to school and maintain their education. Other things that we worked on even just this year is no longer in Georgia, as soon as the governor has already signed, welfare recipients in the state of Georgia will be drug tested. No longer will they be able to sit and have anything else. And some of the Democrats were saying, they said, well, what about the children? We hear that a lot. Well, here's what we did. In the bill, it actually took out and said that if the money was going to children, then we'll set up a separate account so that money can still go to the children, but we're not going to have parents who sit around and do drugs and take welfare modes. That's just not right. It's not where our country's founded. So there's a lot of things that we're going to talk about tonight. There's, as I'm like to say, and as we have 5 candidates up here, there's a lot offering, and we're sacrificing a lot to be here. And what we're going to have is differences. We're going to have honest differences of opinion. But one of the things we're going to talk about is your questions, and I look forward to those tonight. I'm Doug Collins, and I look forward to being here with you the rest of this evening.
Good evening. My name is Roger Fitzpatrick. Now, too, I'm running for the 9th Congressional District to represent the eastern part of Pickens County. I am a White County native. Cleveland, Helen, Cabbage Patch Kids, the thing that put us on the map. I remember coming over here several times through the years when I was both in high school and then as a coach coming over to play the Dragons. And sometimes we came out on top, sometimes we didn't. But it was always a good struggle between the teams. When I graduated from White County High School, I took an extended vacation at Parris Island, South Carolina, otherwise known as the United States Marine Corps Recruit Depot. Spent 9 years in Marine Corps Reserves. And during that time that I was in the reserves, I went to the University of Georgia and got my education degree and started teaching. And this year we'll finish up my 28th year in education. I spent first 14 years teaching middle school age children. And I would just encourage you that if you're missing excitement in your life, spend some time around some adolescents. They're great people. And then the last 14 years I've been in administration of first few as an assistant principal, and then the last 4 as the principal of Mossy Creek Elementary in White County. The driveway leading into my school is named after my father, Horace Fitzpatrick, and my mama, Bertie Mae Fitzpatrick. He was a longtime superintendent in the White County school system. And then my wife, Linda, is sitting over there as well. We've been married 27 years coming up in July. We have 2 children and 2 grandchildren. And I agree with you, Mr. Bicknell. Grandchildren, let me tell you, greatest thing since sliced bread. They're wonderful. Tom Graves said something about destiny. And we're facing 2 destinies in this nation. One destiny is that which was set forth by our founding fathers, a manifest destiny that they believed in, that this nation was to be a blessing to the world. And the only way that we could be a blessing to the world was to adhere to the foundational principles that they set forth, that they believed in with such conviction that they were willing to risk their lives to be independent from the tyranny of the Crown of England. They believed it so much that they sacrificed. And they set up a form of government never before seen in the history of mankind. Never before was there a constitutional republic where the people were actually the sovereign. All the times before, you had a person, a king usually, who was the sovereign, or you had a group of people in oligarchy who were the sovereign, and then they ruled whatever they said was the law. And they could change the law because they were the sovereign. But the founding fathers saw the error of that, and they established the United States as a constitutional republic, where the supreme law of the land was the Constitution, and the supreme ruling root was the people of the United States. Our Constitution starts off with we the people. And in the past years, and I would even say decades, we have seen a detour from the original intent of our founding fathers, where we have been going more towards a tyranny, more towards, I guess the term is progressive. Of course, progress is not, that's not my definition of progress myself. But we've been going toward a place to where we have people who have been elected to represent us. One in particular recently said, we need to rewrite the Constitution. And we have someone now who believes that the Constitution really doesn't apply. He feels like he should be able to do whatever he feels like doing, because he doesn't have time to wait to do it in a lawful fashion. We have a judiciary who for years and years has been an activist judiciary. That same person I was talking about accused the Supreme Court of being an activist court if they overturned the health care law. Actually, I think they would be doing their constitutional duty to do something. But we have got to get back to a place to where the supreme law of the land is the Constitution. And I tell you what, we can talk about all of the ills of what's going on in this country, but I want to offer you a message of hope, because I believe that the brightest days for the United States of America is yet before us. And the reason I believe that is because of people like you. We have people who are awakening to take their sovereign place and requiring that our government actually function the way that it was originally intended. Now, it's going to take more and more and more of good people, like what I have seen as we've been traveling around the counties of Northeast Georgia. It's going to take people in the other states who have similar values. But I believe that the people are there. It's just going to take an awakening of the people to finally stand up and say, Washington, no. No more. And not just no more, but we're going to reverse course. And we're going to actually get back to those foundational principles that our founding fathers established over 200 years ago. And when we do that, we're going to see a government that has shrunk to the size to where it's actually efficient and actually serves its purpose of providing for the liberty and the common defense and the general welfare of the people. And you will have a government that actually listens to the voice of the people. Now, I believe firmly that the secret, and it's not really a secret, the solution to the problems that are facing us is getting back to the Constitution. We need to read the original source documents of what our founding fathers wrote. I would suggest, if you haven't read it, to read the Federalist Papers. It explains exactly what they meant. Find out what they meant when they wrote that Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion and prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Find out what they actually meant by that. And when you do, your eyes will be open. Is it time? Thank you very much.
Amen, and all the people said, amen. See, that's my Baptist coming out in there. What a pleasure to be up here with all these wonderful people. I've told everywhere we go, I've never heard such inspiring speeches in all of my life. And I promise you this, as soon as I am elected, I'll hire every one of them. That's a guarantee if we can find the money. I have an idea the money's going to be gone. But these are wonderful people, and I commend every one of you for running. My name is Clifton McDuffie, and I am running for the same position that all of these folks are running for. I live in beautiful Oakwood, Georgia. Do you know where that is? south of Gainesville, about half a mile. And between Gainesville, Flowery Branch, Beaufort, and Atlanta. And our family lives within about 10 miles of us. I grew up in a little town called Fitzgerald. Do you know where Fitzgerald is? Now, this lady back here is having a hard time with directions. I'm going to take her down there. Fitzgerald's about 12,000 people. It's a wonderful town about 90 miles south of Macon, Georgia. And I grew up there, went to school there, and made my first speech on economic development to the Rotary Club in Fitzgerald when I was a senior in high school. I'm not going to tell y'all when that was. It was a long time ago. I went off to college, came back, they hired me to run the Chamber of Commerce there. I worked there for a number of years where I met my beautiful bride, and we've been married for 45 years. And somebody here tonight asked me, did I believe in miracles? And I said, I certainly do. They said, why would you believe in miracles? I said, apparently you hadn't seen my wife. The Lord had me in a vein. I could have never done that on my own. So we've been married. We have 3 grown children and 3 grandchildren. And they live within about 10 miles of Oakwood. Fitzgerald, nice town, ran the Chamber of Commerce there. We established one of the first official industrial parks in the state of Georgia. And I started recruiting industry to Georgia. And I helped the city of Albany when they were looking to recruit Firestone Tire and Rubber Company. It was a $54 million plant, 1,500 jobs. We got the plant, okay? About 3 years later, we recruited Procter & Gamble, which had a $35 million plant and about 2,000 jobs. Oh, hallelujah. We were filling up South Georgia with good jobs. I don't think we've gotten 3 since then. We worked hard. I've worked hard all my life in recruiting industry to Georgia, and I'll come back to that. We did such a great job there, the people over in Waycross were having trouble with the alligators in the Okefenokee Swamp. And so they hired me to come over there and do some tourism work, and I learned a lot about tourism with the Waycross Chamber of Commerce. And then in 1981, the good folks in Gainesville hired me to come to Gainesville to help them build their Chamber of Commerce back up. They had about 600 members. They were running on borrowed money. And when I left, we had plenty of money in the bank, a little surplus, and we had over 2,000 members, the 3rd largest Chamber of Commerce in Georgia at that time. I don't know what the status today is. But we recruited a lot of industry into Hall County. About 20 Fortune 500 companies, over 50 manufacturers and processors, over $600 or $700 million in capital investment, over 6,000 jobs. And I'm proud of that record. When all that was going on, a lot of folks around the state elected me to be president of the Georgia Economic Developers Association, where I served my term there. And I was also served, and I love this facility, I served as chairman of the State Technical College Board, the advisory board, for 1 year when Dr. Breeden was the head of our VOTEC schools in Georgia. And I spoke all over the state of Georgia on economic development. My last speech for the VOTEC folks was in Macon at the graduation of their class, and they wanted to hear something about economic development. Now, why am I running, all right? Well, every poll says, every single poll that I've seen that says the economy is in the ditch. All the people on the TV talk about how the economy has gone downhill. The reason I've offered my services to you folks, and I'm going to ask you to hire me to help you, is that I think we can bring jobs to the 9th District. You may not want a factory here, but how about a motion picture studio? Hey, that lady wants to be in the movies. We can do that kind of thing and bring an enormous amount of wealth to our area. And I do love the Constitution. Don't you love to hear these people talk about the Constitution? Today I heard Rush Limbaugh said you can go to rushtohillsdale.com, which is a college, and you can take the Constitution 101 free of charge. How about that? You can do that today, or we can get home today. Our congressman, our current congressman, his office is run in Gainesville by Tina Riley. I've known the Rileys since 1981. Tina's husband, Richard, was in my Sunday school class when I taught at First Baptist Church. 1 minute. Gosh. When I'm elected, one of the things I want to do is form an economic development council. The council would encompass, like an umbrella, the whole 9th district. We would concentrate on agriculture. We would concentrate on bringing new industry. We would concentrate on revisiting the concept of a regional airport for our area. And we would concentrate on the film commission, bringing the film commission to this area to help stimulate our economy. On the back table, I have brought my resume. You're going to hire somebody to be your congressman, right? Read the resume, please. You can go online and find out all you want to about me. My business cards, I have a business, but to do any business, I would probably have to move to China. So I don't want to move to China. I want to stay in Georgia. I love Georgia. It's a great state. I hope I've made a contribution to it over the years. I want to continue in that capacity, and I'm asking you to vote for me. And here's Martha.
Thank you so much for having me here tonight. I'm Martha Zoller, and I'm your conservative voice and have been for over 15 years. It's great to be back with the Tea Party. I remember my first Tea Party meeting. I had followed the tweets that were going on as a result of the whole Rick Santelli thing, and there was a first Tea Party meeting that was held in the Poultry Park in Gainesville. There were maybe 40 to start off with, and it ended up growing to a crowd of maybe 300 or 400. And the person that, and this goes to show, when we were supposed to be AstroTurf, remember, where there was this big money behind us, y'all remember that? But it was a guy that didn't know you had to have a permit to have a PA system. So I stood up on the bench and had to take my shoes off, stood up on the bench and spoke to that first Tea Party in Gainesville. And I've been with the Tea Party ever since. Jack Kingston said, Martha, you were Tea Party before they called it Tea Party. You were a fiscal conservative and you were out there. I'm running for the 9th District Congressional seat because Washington's broken. The American dream is under siege. And the American dream is not about the 1% or the 99%. It is about your children and grandchildren having as good or better opportunities as you had. That's what it's about. We've got major things that are going on in this country, and we've got to take action regarding it. I've had a tough few years. In 2008, my sister was diagnosed with lung cancer, adenosine carcinoma, and about 8 months later, my mother was diagnosed with the same type of cancer, adenosine carcinoma. Very unusual. It's a non-smoking type of lung cancer. Very unusual to have 2 blood-related people to have that cancer. And through that time, I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about hospice. I learned a lot about home health care. And in early 2009, Tom Graves gave me a call and he said, Martha, I hear you thinking about running for Congress, and since you and I are the most conservative people in this district, we don't want to run against each other because we'll split the conservative vote. And I met with him. He did not know. I told him later about the fact that my mother was sick and that I needed to be a daughter and a sister. And as it turned out, my mother died September the 19th, 2010, and my sister died July the 15th. 2010. And it was a very difficult time, but every time I saw Tom Graves, he would stop and pray with me. It didn't matter where he was, it didn't matter what he was doing, it didn't matter how many people were around. He always pulled me to the side and we prayed for my sister. And then after my sister died, we prayed for my brother-in-law. And I still send him texts from time to time, because I'll ask him when Jim's having a tough time, because he's having a hard time losing his wife of 40 years. I'll say, Tom, it's been a tough day for Jim. Will you pray for him? And Tom always does. And that's the kind of person that Tom Graves is. But I will tell you that it's important to me to run for this office because of my children and my soon-to-be, I hope, grandchildren. I have 1 married child now. But the issues are important, okay? There's spending. We got to put everything on the table. And with all due respect to the state legislators that are here, the Congress is full of state legislators that balanced budgets when they were in the state legislature because they had to, and haven't voted for a single balanced budget since they've been in Congress, with the exception of Tom Graves and Paul Brown. Okay? So by and large, that's what's happened. And we need people that are going to look at things differently and are going to say, why are we going to do it this way? We also have to stop, the regulation. I met with a business just before I came here, an ag business. And he was telling me about the regulation upon regulation upon regulation that we have. And it starts with repealing Obamacare, Sarbanes-Oxley, which is the knee-jerk reaction to Enron and the dot-com bubble, and Dodd-Frank, which is the knee-jerk reaction to the banking crisis. Do you see a pattern here? Okay. We take a pendulum and we go too far with it. We take a good idea. Yeah, we want safety in the workplace. We want our food to be safe. We want those things, right? But you take a good idea, you go too far with it. And then it's hard to get it back. If you've ever been in debt before, you know how it takes you 10 times longer to get out of debt than it took you to get into it? Okay, it's going to take us 10 times longer to get out of this mess, but we got to keep working towards it. So that is the second thing. The third thing is the tax code. I have been a fair taxer for years. I have been on the bus. I have been at the rallies. I spoke on the steps of the Capitol for the Tea Party and for the fair tax. I was one of the people that brought up the fair tax at that multi-100,000 person rally where everybody was saying, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? I spoke at that rally. I was there. I have been there every time you all have asked me for help with any issues. I have been there. But we have got to have a tax code that makes sense. And I'm going to say two quick things to finish up, and then we got plenty of time for questions. You know, when I was a younger woman, I used to say 22 when I said this, but when I was a younger woman, the people that I wanted to vote for office, I hung on every word that they said. I thought what they said was gold. Okay? And I found out that, you know, not all of them are as good as Tom Graves is. But we've got to vote for a president. And we need to vote for a president that's not Barack Obama. And I probably, for many of us in this room, thank you. Many of us in this room, your first choice is not going to be the nominee, but we still have to get behind that person. And finally, you're going to hear a lot tonight about differences, about things that are going on, but I just want to tell you right up front, I'm going to be here like I've always been here. I'll hang around, I'll look at different things, but you know, I'm going to be here to answer your questions. And if we don't get to all the questions tonight, I'll be around to talk to you. And if I'm not around to talk to you tonight, if you can't get to me, I'm going to give your cell phone number, my cell phone number now, and then at the end also. And it's 770-503-6738. That is 770-503-6738. And I will give it to you at the end too. But thank you so much. I appreciate your vote. Go to marthaforcongress.com and we'll be talking more. Thanks.
This is a quiet group, and I am surprised because this is not normally how we are. But we're very respectful, and I think it's absolutely outstanding that these candidates have decided to come up here and visit with Pickens County Tea Party. We thank you so much for doing what you're doing, because you're running, we're not, you're driving, you're meeting, and I think that deserves a strong group of applause for these people that are willing to do this. Thank you very, very much. Now, have you come prepared with questions? Tell me you have. Good. I'd like to line you up at the microphone because I think that's the best way to do it instead of running around the room, although we got one person. Do we have more than that? Go ahead with your question. Do you want to ask? You can ask all of them, or you can ask individuals, or however, and maybe identify yourself too.
Wayne Barron, Jasper, Georgia. I'd like to ask if each of you will respond briefly, please. Tell us what value, what conviction do you hold that you will take to Washington, D.C. and definitely, beyond a shadow of a doubt, not allow that conviction to be contaminated by those folks up there?
Go ahead. Hunter?
Thank you for the question. The primary conviction that I think that I will take is that I am a fiscal conservative. Well, it's hard to narrow this down. First of all, constitutionalism, we've got to quit trampling our Constitution. It is, as Roger pointed out, it is an outstanding document, and we've moved away from it for many years. But I'm a fiscal conservative, and my mission is to go and get a balanced budget amendment passed and cut spending and reduce the size of the federal government. And there's no Potomac fever that will change that in a minute. If the citizens don't want to reelect me for a second term, fine, but I'm going to stick to what I believe is right. And no pressure from the leadership or any special interest groups will change that in any way. We will get a balanced budget amendment passed. We will start reducing our deficit. Thank you.
Doug? Yeah.
Well, I think the thing for me, and it encompasses everything, and that's what I'm going to term family values. Tonight, I am blessed to have not only my wife of 24 years, she is reminding me 25 just around the corner next year, but my 3 children. And they remind me each and every day why I am running. In fact, when I get up here, I like to take notes, and the first 3 typically things I do is I write down their 3 names. Because that is why I'm in this. Not because they're my children, but because they're the grandchildren, they're the nieces and nephews, your children, and they're representative of the 9th District in this area. And that is the main value that I carry, because here's the values that comes from that. It comes from not only fiscal conservatism, purity to the Constitution, doing what needs to be done, but it also comes in restoring what I call the moral fiber of our country. Going back to the basics of life matters, both the unborn and the dying. Life matters. And we've had an eroding of that. Whereas values in our family structure and the structures of our communities, these are the things that come forward. If we have a country in which, if I teach my children that what you have coming in is only what you can spend, and you have to earn that, but yet in Washington that value is being destroyed, then we're taking away from what I'll call family values. This is what I carry. That is a non-negotiable for me, and that is what I carry to D.C.
Thank you, Doug. Roger?
As I was talking about the principle that cannot be shaken is that the Constitution is the law of the land. And I've been reading a lot about our founding fathers, and I would suggest to you a book called The 5,000-Year Leap.
We've read it, that you're talking to Tea Party here.
Oh, let me tell you
I
something.
appreciate that.
You know, every one of those 28 principles that that author lays forth, they are foundational to this nation. And from getting out of debt to maintaining religious liberty, the sanctity of life, natural law and the laws of God, you know, all of those principles are things that must be adhered to. They're non-negotiable. And they were non-negotiable for the first almost 200 years, 175 plus. And you saw a fledgling nation go from nothing to the greatest power, the greatest influence on the face of the earth. And if it worked then, I guarantee it'll work again. And my mission, the reason that I got into this race in the first place, first of all, because I love my country. And because I love my country, and of course the country is made up of people, just like Becky was saying, it's about the people, the children and the grandchildren and the nieces and the nephews and the parents and grandparents and so on and so forth. I love the people, and I want to see the people prosper the way that this nation prospered before. We cannot be mired down in all of the red tape and the regulation and so forth that this government has put on the people. All of that must be thrown off. And so I will adhere to those constitutional principles that our founding fathers set forth.
Thank you, Roger. Clifton, how are you going to prevent them from getting at you when you go to Washington if you get elected? That's what he's asking.
Me,
Yep.
first, I read a book too. It's called the Bible. It's called the Holy Scripture. My life is built on Scripture. My family started me as a little boy reading the Bible daily. I do it daily, okay? And I pray daily. And I'm asking you to pray for us and pray for our country. Everything that the Constitution has to say is basically built on biblical principles. Wouldn't you agree, Professor?
Yes, sir.
See, he agrees. I'm taking him with me. I don't know how you can say any more than that. I've had some wonderful opportunities to work in the Christian church. I'm a member of the Blackshear Place Baptist Church in Oakwood. We have 7,000 members there. But during my time of being a Christian, I had the opportunity of meeting Dr. Billy Graham in person when Governor Joe Frank Harris was governor. He had prayer breakfast, and I was invited to go by the governor to the prayer breakfast, and I had the chance to meet Dr. Billy Graham. I was very active in the Georgia Baptist Convention at one time, served on several committees, and one of my favorite speakers, Dr. Jerry Falwell. What a wonderful pastor he was, and what a great man he was. So my principles prior to being a constitutionalist like you are were based on biblical principles. Thank you very much.
The foundation that I use, obviously, I'm a Christ follower, so the Bible is a foundation for me, as well as the Constitution, the Federalist Papers, and the Declaration of Independence. But what's going to keep me on track is I'm going to come home a lot. Okay? I can't promise you I'm going to live in my office like a lot of those guys do, because it takes a lot of stuff to make me look like this. Okay? And so I probably can't live in my office. Okay? But I'm going to come home a lot. I'm going to be up there like it's a traveling job, not like I'm living there. The big problem that you have with these guys, and it's a problem that journalism has too, is that now that they're in Washington, they're making a little more money, the congressmen make a little more money, they're living in nice neighborhoods, their kids are going to the right schools, they're doing all this kind of stuff, and they want to be invited to the cocktail parties. I don't care if I'm invited to the cocktail parties. And then finally, like my daddy used to say, it's who you hang out with. And if you hang out with the right people, then you're going to do the right things and you're going to stay out of trouble. Thank you.
Well, I think there is no doubt that we have a group of conservatives. We don't have a rhino among the bunch. I don't think we do. So that's excellent. Now, any more questions? Oh, I see someone over there. I will be right back. Mike. I expected a long line, but we're going to go ahead and just let you talk.
Thank you, Kathy. I'm Kay Kudrick from here in Jasper. I want to know by a show of hands how many of you did your own taxes this year? Not a single one. How many weeks, months, and days did it take you just to get the information together to do your taxes? Now, I know Martha hit on the fair tax, but I want to know how each of the rest of you feel about the fair tax and trying to get it promoted through.
Good question. There you go. Roger, you bounced right up. Okay, go ahead.
I'm currently reading the fair tax book by Bill Morris, about halfway through it, and all that perfect sense. And the embedded 22% tax that's already in the product would be done away with. It would be a total consumption tax, and not only that, it would take all of these offshore banking operations and bring those corporations back to the United States. You know, and somebody was talking about how long it would take to pay off our national debt. And if we go to the fair tax and the projections that are set forth in that book are halfway through, we'll pay off our national debt, I would say, in less than a decade, because of all of the revenues that would come pouring in to this nation. And if the fair tax is implemented, and it needs to be an immediate thing, it doesn't need to be a phase-in, so that the IRS is totally done away with, eliminated. And then January 1st is when the fair tax takes effect. So it doesn't have to be a phase-in over a period of days, months, years, or whatever. So it can be immediate, and you will see an immediate effect once that happens.
Okay, Roger's a fair tax guy. Who else? Clifton?
I filed for an extension. Hallelujah. Yes, I'm for fair tax.
Okay. You have something to say, Martha?
Obviously, I'm for the fair tax. I've been out there. I wrote about it years ago, and it's been supportive of it. But I just want to make a comment about the tax. Where's the lady that asked the question? Okay, about the tax form. My husband's a small business owner. He's a primary care physician. I have a small business as well as I work for a company. Our tax return is about 50 pages long. And we're not in the top 1%. Let me just let you know that. But it's huge what we have to do. And we have to file an extension too, because we do provide a retirement plan for our employees, and so there's some things that we have to do that we have to catch up on. But it's got to stop. And we got to get rid of the IRS, along with energy and education and the EPA. There are so many things that we have to get rid of. But the fair tax, will turn our economy around. It will turn our economy around. Thank you.
I too am a big supporter of the fair tax. Have supported it for over 10 years now. I certainly think that if we can get that passed, we'll be moving in the right direction. I'm a member of the National Advisory Committee for the fair tax, passing the fair tax amendment. I think that it solves many, many of our problems, just as the speakers before me addressed that issue have mentioned. Without an IRS, just the savings there alone would help us reduce our federal debt.
Amen.
If maybe we could put some of those people to work, investigators, IRS investigators, maybe they could go to work investigating fraud in Social Security and welfare systems and a lot of other areas where there's fraud in our government. Maybe they need to be investigating the General Services Administration and some of their practices.
Thank you, Hunter.
I agree, the fair tax is the way to go, because it really takes out the very things that we're talking about. It takes out the IRS, it takes out it begins to focus on, instead of taxing those who are trying to achieve and those they're trying to do and taking more away, it encourages to start businesses, Here's the big issue with the fair tax. We need to get it done, we need to get started, but we don't need to wait. One of the things that needs to be done is we just need to completely start over. This is not, what we've got now is broken, and the fair tax is the way that we need to go. And in the meantime, if that can be achieved in 1 year, if we can't get enough up there, then let's go get some, let's start that way. Let's stop taxing the people out of starting business, out of starting a company, and starting their families where they're having to spend all this time. And I'm like Martha on this one. We inherited a farm last year when my wife's father died. And between farm income, between owning and working at a law firm and doing it, it's ridiculous. We've got to get that out, because if we ever want our country started back, it's got to start with what you're doing and how you're taking money away. And by the way, those IRS agents that we've already hired to already start looking into something that's not even unconstitutional and passed, there's plenty of ways to start. Let's just start right there.
Thank you, Doug. I think Tom Graves has got a group of people here that no matter who goes to Congress with him, he's got a good bunch of people. What about, ready?
Let me say, I'm Mary Brace Girl, and I've been a good Republican for a long time. But Mr. Fitzpatrick said something in his little flyer that I have here that I really liked, and that has to do with term limits. I really believe that half of our problems, if not all of them, would be solved if the people who we send to Congress didn't feel like they had had a kingdom after they'd been there a while. So I would really like to know how the rest of you feel about term limits.
Thank you, Mary. Who wants to grab that one? Roger?
I'll go ahead since you referenced what I wrote. Yes, I am in favor of term limits, and I would suggest that it needs to be 10 years for the United States House of Representatives and 12 years for the Senate. The president can have up to 10 years if he gets in for a half term and 2 more full terms. So I give the House 10. And Mr. Collins has mentioned on previous occasions that I believe the turnover rate in Congress is 60%. Is that correct? A little bit higher than 60%. And that's great that either through retirement or people being voted out, that we have that kind of turnover. But my concern is for the other 40, 35%. You take those that have been up there for 35, 40, gosh, I don't know what the record is now. and they've been there so long that they think that it's owed to them to be there. And that is so contrary to the way that it was originally intended. You know the term public servant? Well, that term, servant especially, has gone by the wayside in so many of those that have been elected to Washington. And we have got to get back to the place to where it was originally set up. And that is, I go up there, and I serve, and I come home. And then I let somebody go up there and serve and come home. And I would suggest this too, and it's not necessarily related to term limits, but the original fathers, they felt like the benefits that go along with the position should be little or nothing. Because their concern was that if you make it monetarily attractive, then what you're going to attract are not necessarily the best people for the position. And so we need to have people that are going to go up there that are not concerned with having that as their retirement plan, and not concerned with being up there for the rest of their life. We need to have people that are actually servants. Go up there, serve, come home, let somebody else do it.
Well, I talked to you when I first started about differences, easy answers, and problems. Here's one of the things that I'm going to start off. Now, we've had many times before, we've had this who enforces term limits, and that's an answer right now that goes to a corrupt situation which we're looking at right now. Now, I'm not sure about where we're going and where your feeling is, but I know for where I stand on term limits is this, and we talk about the constitutional law. The Constitution looks like they put a term limit on the president. They didn't put a term limit on representatives or senators. There was a reason that they decided not to. That's up to them. You read it in their papers as they wrote. Here's the issue and why, personally, I believe the Constitution and elections are the best term limit to have. Now, we've had a bill before that Congress passed and gave term limits as declared unconstitutional. Now, I'm going to state this up front. If a constitutional amendment is passed and we want to pass that and send it to the people so that they can make term limits constitutional the proper way, I'll vote for it, send it to the people. But before we go and we say immediately term limits will solve the problems of and maybe salary or pensions or benefits, let me just state this. One, I personally, don't know about you, but I could take Tom Graves, Marco Rubio, Paul Ryan, Paul Brown, and I'd let them continue to serve because I know their service hard. I think what you find every 2 years is you hold people accountable. I like coming back home because that's what we have to do. You come back home, you sit in these meetings. And if you don't want to vote for me after the first term, don't vote for me. If you can't vote for me now because of this position, that's fine. But I want to let you understand something. When you talk about term limits, there is corruption in Washington. There is 60%, over 60% turnover, and that's correct. And then you have the Nancy Pelosi's of the world. You have the others who are that. What we need to do is we need to transplant some good Republicans in those districts and get rid of them. Is what we need to do. But also in the State House of Georgia, we looked at it from 2000 to 2010. 86% of the Georgia House and Georgia Senate turned over. The people of Georgia know what they're doing. This is why, sometimes the easiest thing for me to honestly stand up here and say, yep, I support term limits and sit back down. But I think the Constitution set it out. I think the other issue you need to be aware of, and this is, if you want to take and you term limit your congressmen and your senators, here's the most powerful people in Washington, the staffs and the bureaucrats, because they don't go home. They're not elected, and they're unaccountable. And the problem is, and Tom has talked about this before, you need to term limit the bureaucrats. The problem is you can't because they're in jobs, and you can't move them around because it's pretty bad if you got a guy who's trained in agriculture. I'd love to send him to the transportation department, but I don't think the transportation department would want him. The problem is they get into jobs and they stay. So if you want, that's one of the issues. And now, politicians, you can take it every way you want, but that's the issue that I have with term limits. It's something to think about, and that is one of the differences we have.
All right. That's a poll count. You can be brief because I want to move on to another question. It's getting to be about 8:15. So go ahead, Hunter.
Okay, thank you. Just as a follow-up to what Doug was saying.
Hold it up closer to you. I think it'll.
Turn it on. Oh.
There, Doug turned it off. I turned
All
it
right. All right. Boy, that's a low blow.
But I told you it was back on.
I do support term limits, and I do. the problems that Doug mentioned, there are ways to address that. I think we need to take a look at our civil service policies, and nobody should be guaranteed a job, and it should not be difficult to get rid of someone who is not performing their job in Washington. But I have been endorsed by the U.S. Term Limits Foundation. I signed a pledge to not run beyond 3 terms, and I think that that is appropriate. I think that there was a point in time when we did not need term limits, but Congress has changed. It's a different culture today. There's a culture there of corruption, and Doug's story earlier about how he got demoted somewhat, some committee assignments taken away when he didn't vote for the right person on the DOT board. Well, that same thing goes on in Washington, D.C., and it's just a corrupt environment. If you have term limits, you go a long way towards getting rid of the Nancy Pelosi's and others that have just been there too long. And sometimes you have to get rid of people you'd like to keep simply because the system is not working the way it is. Then we restart at some time in the future.
Okay, term limits will be a discussion from here for a while, so I think we've got several opinions on that. Do you have a question? Okay, let's go.
I'm Nelson Mattern from the eastern side of Pickens County. I want to commend all of you. I think you've done a fabulous job, and I think we've got a really great slate of candidates before us. Thank you. I've got a question. The United Nations has been working us over for a long time, and they'd like nothing better than to see the United States just brought down a couple pegs. Agenda 21, the United Nations Agenda 21 program is becoming more and more visible all the time, and I'm sure you folks are all aware of it. Two-part question. What is your feeling on our involvement in the United Nations in general, and what would you do to abolish or completely destroy this Agenda 21 program?
Have you all heard of Agenda 21? Martha?
Yeah, I came out against Agenda 21 early in this campaign. I went to a Tea Party meeting several months ago, and it came up, people brought it up. I didn't know everything about it. I studied it. I came out against it. I was the first one to do that. It's basically something I've been talking about on my radio program for years. It is the battle between what you want to do with your property and what the government wants you to do with your property. And I believe that is the battle of the next 25 years, personal property rights. So yes, I don't like the UN. I think we could do without them. I think they're a bunch of anti-Semites who oppose Israel at every turn. And I'm a strong supporter of Israel, and they're not about freedom in the world. And it gives a bunch of despots a voice, and I don't like it. So I don't like the UN. We ought to get out. We ought to stop funding it. And I'll keep it short for you. And we're gonna keep. I'm opposed to Agenda 21.
Good. Anyone else? Okay, Clifton?
We'll back up briefly. Don't worry about me in term limits. The Lord's going to handle that. I will not be there 30 years. I guarantee you. Everybody in here that's against term limits, would you raise your hand, please? Against term limits. Against term limits. All right, everybody in here that's for term limits, would you raise your hand? Anybody got a year on it? 1 year, 2 years, 3 years?
We'd have to study
3
that.
terms?
6 terms.
3 terms.
1 term.
1 term. I can't get it packed that quick. That's a good idea. All right, that's enough of that. To answer this gentleman's question, how could you be for the United Nations, please? My mother taught me as a child, you cannot buy friends. All right? You can buy them an ice cream or whatever you want at the drugstore, as we used to call it. But you can't buy friends. I would have some sort of policy if I were the president where we reviewed all foreign aid at least every 3 years, and those people that weren't on our side would be cut off 100%. Okay? Don't give them a dime.
Thank you.
Well, the one thing about it, I said I'll never be afraid to tell what I speak the truth to those who may disagree with me, and that's good. But this is one thing we don't have to disagree on. There's two issues. One's the UN. And UN, I'm still in the Air Force. And I will not go into a war zone and wear a blue helmet. I wear the red, white, and blue. UN is not going to, and progressively, and this president wants it that way. We've got to get this. The UN needs to be removed from our system. They're also getting into our government, and our laws, and our interpretation of courts. That's not something we've even spoke of yet. We've got to move back on that, and I supported Chris Coomer and many others this year, and we had a bill that was trying to address that Sharia law issue here, and again, from the UN influence. The other is Agenda 21. Agenda 21 is an encroachment, it says. We've learned more about it. It's just an encroachment on private property rights. Was happy with Representative Martin Hamilton this year and many others, Rick Jaspers and others, to support a resolution in the Georgia House condemning Agenda 21. We shared that with you before.
Okay, I want to stop right there with that question. It's about 8:20. This is going to test on how well you can predict the future. How do you think the Supreme Court will rule on Obamacare? No, I need some numbers here. What do you think that?
5-4.
4?
5-4 overturn.
Okay.
Why not 5-4? I like you people.
Doug, what do you?
5-4-6-3 overturn.
5-4 overturn.
Okay, I predict 7-2 overturn. I think that Sotomayor will see the light, but maybe we'll see. But I think it will be overturned.
Right. I hope you're right.
Okay.
That's right.
One more question on school choice. We want to hear your opinions on school choice as to, are you for it or against it, or what is your thinking on that?
Let me address that.
Roger, the school.
Since I spent 28 years in public education, and let me say this, my career's been in education, public education, tax dollars, all that kind of stuff, and I think the Department of Education is one of the first that needs to go. And I'll tell you why. White County school system gets about $1 million a year from the federal government, and that's nice, especially because this year and we've had to cut jobs and cut our budget almost $3 million, and so it has been the toughest year I have ever seen in education in terms of jobs. We've had to take furlough days and just cuts, and I'm sure that y'all are fully aware of that. But along with that nice little sum of money comes hooks, and the federal government can come in here and tell us what we need to do. Now, back to school choice. What's the whole purpose of education in the first place except to prepare our children to become productive citizens in society? And if it's going to be through the public education system, then that's fantastic. If it's going to be through some other avenue, then that's fantastic too. And tax money should be for the public good. Therefore, that tax money should be used to fund the best form of education for the child, and if that includes school choice, then so be it.
Thank you, Roger. Any other comments on school choice?
I have one, and I'll prepare you now. Come this November, you're going to have a choice. And it's going to be back to charter system and charter schools in the state of Georgia. Our Supreme Court in Georgia messed up. And they actually put into, last year when they struck down our charter law, they put something in the Constitution wasn't even there. So this year, we voted out of the House and the Senate, it's going to be a constitutional amendment dealing with charter schools so that you'll be able to do that, and you can actually have a second alternate way to have school choice, and that's been our charter school amendment this year.
That's Georgia for you. Really good.
I do support school choice, but I do believe in getting rid of the Department of Education. It's really not a federal issue. Education ought to be handled on the state and local level. But I'll tell you just a very quick story. In Hall County, we have a fantastic school system. We don't technically have school choice, but we have two school systems, Gainesville and Beaufort, that people can pay tuition to go to those school systems. They're public systems as well as great private schools. As a result of that, our Hall County schools, where my kids went to school, where Doug's kids go to school, they've got language academies and IB academies, and they've got this fabulous charter school where they can learn, partner with Lake Lanier Islands and learn about the hospitality industry. They have choice because they had competition. And even though it was public school competition, when those kids could vote with their feet and go to Gainesville City or Beaufort City, our fantastic superintendent, Will Schofield, put together great choices for our students. So choice isn't just about taking away from public schools. We need choice in public schools, private schools, and religious schools.
Okay, thank you.
Martha's absolutely correct, and competition is what leads to quality and achievement. We have the same system, same situation in Jackson County with the City of Jefferson schools. We've got the Jackson County school system, and we've got Commerce City schools. So there were choices, and that has driven the success of those three school systems, and that is a choice. But when we come to vote this fall, whether we want to be able to vote on that choice, I think that is the proper thing to do, let the public decide. I will be voting for it, but I think that there's situations, there are not many counties in the state that have three school systems in the county. There are only two, Hall and Jackson counties, but competition does work.
Competition always works in everything.
My daddy said I stayed in school too long, especially when I was at the University of Georgia.
Okay, we have one more question. Two more? Come on, you guys, I told you, 20 after. Three more, oh my gosh. If I can do it, what do you mean, me asking?
No, you're the one leading it.
Okay, be quick.
That's right. Okay, as you said, I'll try to be quick. Your feelings on the Social Security system, as far as having the benefits still extended for those who are of retirement age and those who are of my age, of my generation, and how do you feel? Is it a Ponzi scheme to yourselves? Is it something that you see, say, the Galveston plan, where they've opted out? That kind of thing.
Go ahead, because he thinks it's a Ponzi scheme, which I know we've been around with him before. So go ahead, Martha. Good luck.
Well, if you look, I posted this on my Twitter feed and on my Facebook page today. There's a speech that Marco Rubio gave at the Reagan Library a few months ago where he lays out, I think, the best case for what we need to do with Social Security and Medicare. Look, they're not entitlements. You paid into it your entire life. Okay, so what we've got to do is we're going to have to say if you're 55 and older, nothing's going to change because you've been planning your whole life for that particular thing, and we have to kind of take one for the team, and we've got to continue to fund that because that's just the way it goes. If you're I'm 52. If you're from 40 to 55, we're going to have to introduce some privatization into it, and some indexing for age and that sort of thing. It has to happen. I mean, it just has to happen. The numbers don't work. There's $100 trillion in unfunded mandates in Medicare and Social Security. We've got to make drastic changes. Then finally, if you're under 40 like you are, you're going to have to continue paying into a system that you're never going to take anything out of to pay for the older folks that paid into it because we've been spending their money as it's been coming in since LBJ mixed the money in 1966. But we have to communicate it, and we have to tell you why, and it will be all right. But we've got to give you the opportunity to privatize.
I would suggest that the fair tax is the way to go with this. Because if you take out all of the taxes that you pay from your income, and you get 100% of it, and then you go into the sales tax, the consumption tax, and then if all the scenarios are true, how it's laid out, that all the corporations are going to come back to the United States, there's going to be sufficient tax base in order to be able to fund Social Security. But this is something else that we've got to do. There was an example that was given in the book, I read it today, and it said that somebody paid in $24 back several years ago, and then got a monthly benefit of $23. Well, if you think about it, they paid in $24, but how many months did they get that $23? And it was figured out that they got $23,000 after having paid in $23 or $24. And the point is, that is wrong. That is so wrong. You pay into it, then you need to get out of it. But there doesn't need to be the abuse that's going on. And if you're not a citizen, a card-carrying citizen of the United States of America, you don't get benefits. I'm sorry. You have got to be a citizen of the United States of America before you receive the benefits that are afforded the citizens.
How about those in jail for murder? They did. How about dead people?
Well, we've got several people I know it. We need to sit down. I know, Hunter, you want to say something, but I want to give each of you a chance to address us for 1 minute at the end. So go ahead, Hunter, because I think we're about done here.
All right, thank you. I would just add to what was said, in that there is an opportunity to help rebuild the Social Security Trust Fund if we would take the royalties that we collect off drilling on federally owned land for oil and dedicate that money to the Social Security Trust Fund. We can go a long ways towards reestablishing.
Can I just say one thing? Because it's got to be fixed. I think one of the things we've got to do is when we stepped in, as Paul Ryan has a great deal of courage, because he actually stepped in and said, here's a plan. Now, I think it needs to go further. There's areas I'd like to see it go further. But what we've got to do in this room is when the Democrats and others start running ads showing us pushing grandmother over a cliff, when they're not even going to be affected by this, because this is the promise that if you're 55 and older, if that's the time, then we've got to stand up and go door to door and people to people and say, look, this is wrong, this is a lie, but we've got to fix this system. Otherwise, it's tearing down our whole economy, and we've got to be able to do that.
I think the Tea Party is looking for candidates that will call the Democrats what they are when they say this, okay? So that's what we're looking for. We need someone with some backbone to get up in front of your microphones, and we want it from the Republican Party. That's my say-so. So there we go.
You know, when I speak, y'all watch me, I do my Nixon thing, all right? Nixon used to raise his hands like this. I've told a lot of people, the guy in the White House now makes Nixon look like an angel, and that's the truth. Social Security, if they hadn't raided the trust fund, if we could cut out all the corruption and all the waste and all the spending, shut down some of the agencies that these people want to shut down, there is more than enough money to fund Social Security. I said it would get it back by shutting all this down. There was. You're correct. There isn't now. But it was. Listen, I heard on the Bill O'Reilly show on Fox News, there are thousands of dead people collecting Social Security.
All right, I think that's going to have to do it for tonight. I'm sorry. Rick, did you? Okay, well, you snooze, you lose. That's all right. But it's 8:30, and I want to give all of you a chance. We'll start with Martha and go down the table just to have like a 1 minute hello and goodbye, and I want your vote. So there you go, Martha.
Thank you so much for having us here tonight, and it's always great to be with the Tea Party. Again, my cell phone number is 770-503-6738. You can call me anytime, text me, let me know what you think. I hope that you'll log on to marthaforcongress.com. Join me on Facebook and Twitter. Keep me posted on what you want and what you need. And if you need me to speak to a group like this, just let me know. I look forward to meeting all of you, seeing all of you, and I appreciate your vote.
Thank you, Martha. My business card's on the back table. It has my phone number there. You can also find McDuffie for Congress on your computer. I hope you'll go there and look. The most important thing, you don't have to go look anywhere. They're in the back of the room, is my resume. If we run out, I'll print some more. It don't cost but just a little bit at the UPS store, okay? And speaking of the UPS, if they were running the United States Post Office, it would not be broke, all right? I guarantee it. You could privatize the post office with UPS or FedEx and get a whole lot more for your buck than you're getting now. Now, we're going to have an election here in July the 31st, and I want you to vote for me, Clifton McDuffie. Thank you very much, and God bless you, and God bless America.
One of the men I admire most from the history of this nation, Abraham Lincoln, said that we are a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And if we return where that is actually a truism, then we will see the greatest days get before us. I am a constitutionalist. I've been saying that we need to get back to the original intent of the Constitution since the day I entered this race, just a short time ago. And if you find it that I am sent to Washington as your representative, then I will work tirelessly to make sure that the other representatives and senators are educated on what the Constitution actually means when it says what it says. And therefore, we would have legislation that actually adheres to the principles set forth in the Constitution. And let me just say this too, that the legislative body should not be just about enacting laws. It should be about repealing that which is onerous and goes against the way of our American life. And we could probably spend several years repealing what's already in the books. Thank you.
Well, it's been a good night. We've had a lot to say, a lot of questions, some good answers, and there's also some differences. You got some differences. Some of you have, if you've seen that we've handed out some differences, we've talked about some differences up here tonight. But I'll just say this. Campaigns, we're all nice folks. We all look good. We all dress up well. We can tell jokes. We can laugh. But in the end, this is about issues. It's not about, it's not about is the Democrats want to say race, gender, or anything else. It's about issues. And I encourage you to look at the issues, on the issues we agree on, and also the issues we disagree on. Find those and look at them, because this election is important. And when Washington is broke like it is, we've got to have the ability to stand up and stand on consistent conservative principles. That's what I'm here to do, and I'm glad that you were here tonight. CollinsLeads.com is the website. We're on Facebook and Twitter. I'll be around to talk to you even further tonight. But again, God bless you. Thank you for your activity tonight. Thank you.
There are 3 points I want to make in closing. One is we've got to have a change on Pennsylvania Avenue. You must elect a Republican nominee to the presidency of the United States. If we don't do that, everything else we talk about really almost becomes a moot point, because the direction this country is going under his direction is going to be the ruin of this nation. Secondly, our federal debt is going to choke us. It is far beyond what we can handle. If our interest rate were to spike to 4 or 5 or 7 or 8%, we could in no way cover the interest cost on $15 trillion and do all the other things that we need to do. So we have got to control spending. We've got to send someone to Washington that understands the economy, has had a business career, been in the economy with both feet, and knows what we need to do and how to communicate to the other members of Congress the urgency and the imperative of reducing our spending. Parallel to that, we've got to work on our economy. We've got to get jobs created in the marketplace, because that solves a lot of our issues cost-wise. If people get back to work and we're not having to fund all the programs that are necessary as a result of people being unemployed. So I can help Congress in those areas. I would appreciate you to consider voting for me, and I will work as tirelessly as anyone else ever has in the Congress of the United States. Go to votebicknell.com, the website. If you have any questions, as Martha has given you, I'll give you my cell phone number also. It is 678-522-0940. Don't hesitate to call me. Cards I pass out also have that phone number on it. Thank you for allowing all of us to be here tonight. We have enjoyed it. It's been a great opportunity to meet you and talk with you. Be here later tonight if you want us. Well, I guess we have to be out by 9. We'll talk out the parking lot if necessary. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. And I want to say one more thing. Before we